Hey everyone, this is Lomi, and today I'll be sharing an eye-opening modification project featuring this Feeple65 Rin faceplate I got earlier this year. It'll be easier than some other eye-openings I've done before because she's a dreaming faceplate, so she already has eye wells in place, so no drilling or rounding out eye wells necessary. The process starts with just a pencil, marking how far I want to open these eyes. It takes me a little bit to get it right, but it's better to be conservative at first. You can always fill back in with epoxy, but if I take my time and do it right the first time, it'll be a very easy alteration. I remember sharing that I wasn't actually crazy about how this doll sculpt looked, but I kept coming back to her sales listing and eventually decided that after looking at her on the secondhand market for an entire year, it was time to follow my intuition and buy the faceplate and see where that intuition led me. Feeple65 faceplates are a challenge if you don't get them with a head back, but I already have two Feeple65 bodies with the old style head back, and I recently got a third old style head back, so I can have all three of my Feeple65 girls on bodies at the same time. I'm pretty excited about what that'll mean for photos once all of them are finished. This one will become Rika, who is a minor character in my Snake's Blood Saga fantasy book series, but she's a close friend of Pharrell and Kit, so I really look forward to taking photos of the three of them together. I measure and make adjustments as I go along, then when I feel good about the shape I've got drawn for the new eye openings, I fill them in with pencil to make it easier to envision what it'll look like as a whole. It's really easy to remove pencil marks from bare resin, so I clean up the edges and don't worry too much about smudging, because I can wash it off later. When I'm finally happy with the shape, I get started, using an X-Acto blade to shave resin off the upper eyelid a little bit at a time. You can't see me on camera, but I'm wearing my respirator during this project, because even though these shavings aren't too likely to be inhaled, I'll be sanding toward the end of the project. While I typically use power tools for modifications, I decided to keep things more simple this time and just use my knife, files, and some sandpaper. Not everyone has access to a Dremel or the ability to use one comfortably, and I don't want anyone to think that modifications are off limits to them just because they don't have a toolbox as full as mine. Honestly, the hardest part of this task is making myself go slow. The resin isn't very hard to cut at all, but I don't want to accidentally take off too much or lose control of the blade and have it cut somewhere I don't want. Once the eye is pretty much open, I smooth out the edges with the metal X-Acto file, but it doesn't need a lot of smoothing because shaving the resin off with the blade leaves such a clean edge. So then I move on to the other eye. This point of the project is where the natural asymmetry in a doll's face starts to come out, and it takes a little adjustment on both eyes to make them even. One of the eyes was a little bit wider than the other, by almost a millimeter, which isn't a lot, but it makes a huge difference in something as tiny as a doll's face. So I check measurements with a sewing gauge, make adjustments to the size and shape of both eyes, and then sand everything smooth with the files and a sanding twig when I'm done. Wrapping a finer grit of sandpaper around the blue twig makes it easy to quickly switch between grits. The twig is about 320 grit, I believe, while the sandpaper I use is 600, and that gives me a nice, smooth finish. Once all the carving and sanding is done, I put in a pair of eyes and see how it looks. Honestly, I don't think she looks much like the same doll at all. The rounded eye shape I gave her goes nicely with her round cheeks and full lips, and I feel like she's a lot cuter than she was before. The character she'll embody is really playful, so the sweetness in her face should be a perfect fit. The modifications turned out pretty even, and she's now ready to seal and paint. It only took about 30 minutes to complete this, and how she turned out makes me really glad I decided to follow my instincts and give this sculpt a try. And that's all for today. Thanks for watching. Bye.